And it is now time for SME On Point. This is your Friday small business segment. So October is Transport Month, and this week we meet a pair in logistics whose business was sparked by, listen to this, regular hangouts on Fridays trying to solve other people's problems in their businesses. Let's watch this insert that's edited by Mangoba Nkosi. The Ngobo cousins, together with their two business associates, saw a business opportunity through what they termed Friday Case Study Night. With their different experiences, they put their heads together to start Liabo Logistics.
We realized we had the skill set to start a logistics business or transport and supply chain business. We used to get together while still full-time employed. We used to get together and do case studies basically on Friday evenings where we would crack logistics and industrial type cases. So once we got a grasp of it and felt that we were comfortable theoretically with turning around a logistics business, we tested ourselves and said let's try it practically and register a business and actually go for it. And so yeah, that's how it started.
So with our other partners, they were also initially part of the Case Study Fridays, which we used to host on a weekly basis. And the benefits of that are the different sets of skills. So from a leadership perspective, Njabulo filled that skill, and also great negotiator and communicator and strategy and vision. From an operations perspective, that's where I came in, because I've got a supply chain background, and that's what I did in my previous role, supply chain related. And what was nice was having Mkhetwa, who's engineering background, and Lucia from a finance perspective background, who's a CA. So bringing in all those skills helped us to cover all the bases for our business.
According to a study by PricewaterhouseCoopers, due to advancing globalization, declining trade barriers and an increasingly mobile workforce, the transport and logistics industry continues to enjoy above average growth. This is why NM Logistics sought the piece of the pie, especially with the low barriers to entry in mind.
Definitely not all roses. There's plenty of opportunity, I'll say that, just to encourage anyone thinking of getting into the industry. However, the logistics industry has changed globally, and I suppose Africa is moving towards that change. So it's no longer you need to be a 100-truck fleet company to be able to compete. You can be a small-sized agile company leveraging digitization to basically scale and compete on rate, on efficiencies with the big guys. So I think the logistics industry as a whole is exciting now to be in it because of those changes that are there and those opportunities that are there, and everyone is having to adapt.
NM Logistics has not been immune to challenges that come with running any business, especially the effects of the ongoing pandemic, as well as access to funding.
Funding a logistics business is not as simple as you get a blue chip company to give you a contract and you go around to the banks and you'll get funding. It's not that simple. Track record is still important. Your risk profile is still very important. So all of those things are some of the things that we've had to learn, and kind of how do you mitigate the risk for the bank? How do you mitigate risks for investors and other stakeholders that want to partner with you? And also, how do you make efficiencies without owning every single component of the business, which is another thing you have to kind of wrap your head around. So we've had to do that quite quickly. It's helped us a lot, but it was quite a rude awakening, because we thought the more business you secure, the higher quality business you secure, the easier it becomes. It's not the case.
NM Logistics says its outlook is to grow the business from purely a transport business to venture into supply chain corporates and small businesses.
Because we want to help the smaller businesses that aren't necessarily in logistics, but they might be in packaging or manufacturing, and the costs are high, and as a small black business it's difficult in terms of transportation. So our vision is to grow in that perspective, from a large corporate and a small perspective, and then get into warehousing. So in the next year we're looking to get into warehousing, where we control the warehousing and the transportation side. And then going forward, it's also going to be shipping and a lot of other things.
Liabo Setho, SABC News, Johannesburg. Thank you to NM Logistics for sharing their story with SME On Point. Remember, we are on Facebook. Our Facebook page is at SME On Point if you want to get in touch with us. And you can also watch this feature of SME on our YouTube channel, the SABC News YouTube channel. Access to funding has always been a challenge for small businesses. Fintechs at TransUnion believe that one source of relief could come from the rapidly growing fintech sector. They say they could play a role in helping the country's SMEs to recover from the impact of COVID-19. Fintech funders are increasingly stepping up to address the significant SME funding gap. Let's find out how this can be done from Darlene Deal, the head of fintechs at TransUnion. Darlene, thank you so much for joining us on SME On Point. Firstly, let me find out from you how one defines a fintech company.
Thank you, Liabo. So, for me, a fintech company, and even if you Google it, it's a company that uses technology to either create new products or services or significantly alter that which we're used to. And they sometimes remove friction out of the financial services industry.
Yeah. Let's talk about creditworthiness. I'm not sure if you did pay attention to our insert that we played on Your Money on Market Sense. Naledi spoke about, creditworthiness, and it's important. It's obviously not only important for individuals, but for companies as well. So, but how do we see COVID exacerbating the issue of creditworthiness, particularly for small businesses?
Well, now you're speaking to something that I'm very passionate about, Liabo, because, we often focus on the consumer, but SMEs are often sole props or small businesses, and I honestly believe they're the lifeblood of any country, not just our country. And what we need to do is we need to also remember that fintechs too have been hit by COVID, and SMEs have been hit very hard. We've done a lot of research from a TransUnion perspective, and we've been helping fintechs and SMEs understand the impact that it's had on our country as a whole. And it means that we need to treat them slightly differently. We need to understand what they're going through, and traditional finance is not necessarily quick enough to help save their businesses. So they do look towards fintechs and alternative lending houses to assist them in terms of getting that much needed funding in a time of crisis for survival. Yeah,
with that in mind, I wonder now how the fintechs do the assessment of risk and credit extension, because we know that with traditional banks, it has become so much more stringent. But how do they take into consideration the types of situation that a particular SME is, or the type of business it is, and the situation that is going through, in order to come up with what they think is a reasonable credit to be offered to them?
So the thing that I like most about the way that fintechs assess is that they use alternative data. And it's not necessarily anything new. If you look at some of the long-standing merchant advance companies like Retail Capital, Lulaland, those guys, they've taken transactional data and they basically give you an advance on future revenue. They don't necessarily put an interest rate on it, and your seasonality and your income ebbs and flows are taken into account. From a risk perspective, they'll, for instance, use mobile information to ascertain risk in terms of, how do you use your mobile? Has your mobile been used? Do you constantly do SIM swaps? Have you done multiple applications with that mobile device? And that is also a very good way to assess risk on a mobile device. All of that gets taken into account. And the thing that makes these alternative lenders so different is the way that they consume the information and their turnaround time using technology.
Yeah. Darlene, at the end of the day, it is our behavior as small business owners, also, of course, as individuals, and how you conduct your finances that determine whether you are credit worthy or not. How can you advise small business owners about how they conduct their financial affairs so that when the time of crisis comes, they're able to get credit so much more easily?
We are currently doing quite a bit of knowledge sharing and information. And the thing that businesses need to understand is that there's a business credit report on your business as well. So consumers have credit reports, and it's really important for them to access that for the purpose of understanding what lenders look at when they're looking at you. Now, and when I say you, sole props need to see it as a consumer, and businesses also need to look at their business credit report. Make that business credit report part of your financial application, because it really shows that you're on top of your your financials. You're on top of the information that the Bureau has on you as a company. It shows who the principals are, and then the company has that sense of comfort that they're dealing with the right mandated official, that the information on there is true and correct, that the bank information is correct, that you've not, it shows your adverse information. But besides that, be open and transparent.
Yeah.
If you've had adverse information because of COVID-19, be open and upfront about it. Share that.
Yeah.
A lot of the working capital guys are also looking at how can they help you settle your invoices so that you can remain alive from a business perspective.
Yeah.
And that is really pivotal in this market.
Yeah. Darlene, before I let you go, I know that at TransUnion you do deal with credit reports and such. Have you had any experiences seeing how businesses, whether there's been an uptick in businesses having adverse reports on their credit reports?
So we've looked at both consumers and businesses in this regard, and we call them fallen angels, the ones that have traditionally trended as really good clients, but then due to COVID, they've had an impact that is outside of their control. So we do look at the trended information, and it's very important because a lender needs to be able to see that you have been traditionally a really good performer from a credit perspective, but even if your credit invisible, we make it really pertinent for them to understand the alternative data. If you look at that company, the logistics company that you just had on, for them, they might not have previously had an SME that they could have gone to a bank with, or given the traditional business case information that you have to provide for a bank. But the thing is, if you work with fintechs and alternative lenders and you engage with them in conversation and you are on top of your consumer finance, it opens up that capability for them to be able to trust you. And this is ultimately what we as a bureau are interested in.
All right.
We want to make trust possible.
Understood. Darlene, thank you so much for joining us on SME On Point. We really appreciate your input. Do you have a lovely weekend?
Thank you so much.
And that is Darlene Deal from Head of Fintechs at TransUnion, and she was giving us a perspective about how fintechs can help to bridge the gap of funding, particularly when it comes to small businesses. Well, that is all from SME On Point for this week. Until next week, Tesh is coming up with Books on Point.